Good morning, students. We have started this chapter, the three orders, and we yesterday did the introduction of it. Today, we would be starting the topic an introduction to feudalism. But you have to understand, as we had already covered, that we started as hunters and gatherers, and gradually, as the complexity of the society increased, and the economic activities changed with the period of time. So naturally, this we are essentially studying about a period where land was important, where farming was in full bloom, where 80% to 90% of the economic activity centered around farming. And guys, you have to understand that even today, in in most of the countries, about 50 to 60% of the economic activity is still somehow or the other is moving around agriculture even today, because agriculture is the basic of life, where it feeds you, right? So there would be a set of farmers, there would be a set of traders, there would be a set of people who would be into warehousing. So all that ultimately is about agriculture. Okay, so let's talk about a period where agriculture uh, was the most important industry at that point in time, and almost 90% of the population was engaged in the agricultural activities, and 90% of the income of the state used to come from agriculture. So naturally, it is a thing of common sense that someone who would have the control over the most important resource at that point in time, which used to be land, would naturally be the one who would enjoy all that affluence and rich and power, political power, monetary power. Guys, you have to just to put it in a lighter vein, like the feudal lords at that point in time, the feudal lords, that is the people who used to have control over hundreds and thousands of acres of land. They used to be the modern, say, the Ambanis and the Adanis and the Goenkas of today. Like, because today you live in the world of industrialization, right? So naturally, people who have the maximum industrial spread are the ones who are considered to be the rich of the rich. Why? Because today you live in an industrialized world, but you have to understand that in 10th century, 11th century, till about almost like 17th century, agriculture, people who would control the most of land would naturally control most of the resources that used to be there prevalent at that point in time, and also you would ultimately end up controlling most of the economic activity which a state was engaged in at that point in time. So now we are talking about, as I'm sure you must have understood now, the importance of this. So let's start the topic, the introduction to feudalism. The term feudalism has been used by historians to describe the economic, legal, political, and social relationship that existed in Europe in the medieval era. Derived from the German word feud, which means a piece of land, it refers to the kind of society that developed in medieval France and later in England and in southern Italy. In an economic sense, feudalism refers to a kind of agricultural production which is based on the relationship between lords and peasants. The latter cultivated their own land as well as that of the lord. The peasants performed labor services for the lords, who in exchange provided military protection. They also had extensive judicial control over peasants. Thus, thus feudalism went beyond the economy to cover the social and political aspects of life as well. So essentially, it is trying to tell you that the people, the feudal lords, and there would be one or two feudal lords or the family of feudal lord, and there would be hundreds of people who would be employed by them. So naturally, they would be the ones who would not just exercise an economic control over the people who used to work for them, but even the judicial control over the people who used to work for them. Students, you have to understand that this is a system. Yeah, I wish I could have explained it on the board, kids. But you have to understand, but let me try and simplify it for you. You have to understand that this was the system which was not just prevalent in Europe at that point in time. This was the time tested system which existed even in India during the British times, the whole of British times exactly. Okay, you can understand that right now we are definitely talking about 11th century and 12th century and all these years, but you have to understand that this system was a very popular system. It was something which always existed. Okay, it was always there. It always existed. Now, like for example in India, the and what it is essentially talking about is the feudal lord would not just be responsible for your probably your how much money you make and how much whether he gives you for whatever hard work you do, whether he pays you in terms of money or whether he pays you in terms of the food grain. That could be definitely different from place to place, but at that point in time, because you were living in his land, in his plot of land, you are working for him. It was just a matter of fact that even if you have certain legal disputes within your own labors, that is the 500 people working for him or 1500 people working for him, if they had certain issues, even if they were legal issues, they would expect the feudal lord to resolve it for them. They would not be approaching the state machinery as that the courts of the state to resolve those issues for them, because these are poor people that we are talking about. They definitely would not be able to afford the legal remedy which would be provided and administered by the state. So naturally, they would be looking at the feudal lords. And students, it is not very difficult to imagine, or it's very easy to see that even if you go to villages today, what happens there? Even today, the Mukhiya ji, the Sarpanch ji, they are enormously powerful. Even today, they resolve a lot of civil disputes. You have to understand that even during the British times, when the British came to India, they did not change the system. Even at that point in time, the Sarpanch, the Mukhiya, the Zamindar Sahib, they used to be enormously powerful. They would resolve all, even the family disputes between different people, the social disputes, the economic disputes, the political disputes. They would resolve all the disputes. The people would not go to the courts, which were run and administered by the state. You'd be surprised to know that the system has been a very old system which has existed in different parts of the world in different societies. The only thing and the only area where the feudal lords, or for that matter, the feudal lords or the zamindars or the mukhia or the sarpanch would not be able to exercise their power of adjudication, or their judicial powers would be in the criminal areas. If there has been a murder, if there has been some kind of someone has been brutally beaten up, or some kind of you got the point, right? So unless it is a criminal activity, it was only then that the matter would go to the courts which were administered by the state. That it would be only then that the people would take those matters to the state. Otherwise, all those matters used to be, and it used to happen even not just in Europe, even during the British times in India, where the sarpanch, the zamindars, the mukhiyas, they would resolve all the legal disputes. Okay, they were authorized to, because it was, the people used to trust them. The sarpanch, they used to have that kind of credibility. And the zamindars, they were very powerful people. He knew everyone, even the nature of the people who would be working for them. So on civil matters, it was very easy for them to kind of resolve the issues at the own ground level. It was only in the criminal matters where the matter would get escalated to the state judicial courts, where it would surpass the feudal lords and the zamindars, or the sarpanch and the mukhiyas. So as you get it here, so they were very influential and powerful people. An introduction to feudalism, although its roots have been traced to practices that existed in the Roman Empire during the age of the French king Charlemagne in 742 to 1814 AD. Feudalism has, as an established way of life in large parts of Europe, maybe said to have emerged later in the 11th century. And it is not just yeah, and it is not just in Europe, as I just mentioned. It was also very much there in India. France and England. Gaul, a province of the Roman Empire, had two extensive coastlines, mountain ranges, long rivers, forests, and large tracts of plains suited to agriculture. The Franks, a Germanic tribe, gave their name to Gaul, making it France from the 6th century. This region was a kingdom ruled by the Frankish French kings who were Christian. The French had very strong links with the church, which were further strengthened when, in 1800, the Pope gave King Charlemagne the title of Holy Roman Emperor to ensure his support. Now, what we are talking about, naturally, we have picked up the countries which definitely we pick up the French and the British society because, or the English society, because these are the societies which have normally been the trendsetters for the European societies. Whatever they do, rest of the Europe follows. So naturally, we have first picked up France and England as our focal points. So the three orders. Now, students, we shall start this tomorrow. Thank you.